Today we're going to be looking at Hypixel Skyblock's most common weapon. I think it'll be quite surprising for some people how much damage this can actually do and how good it actually can be. But before we do get into the video, if you've not already joined the Discord, then make sure you do. There's a link in the description as always. We've got quite a few big giveaways going on over there at the moment, so it's probably not something you want to miss out on. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. I hope you all do enjoy. Now I wonder if anybody can guess the weapon. Bit of a tricky one. So you might be thinking, Nitros, why on earth are you trying out the aspects of the end? The aspects of the end is good for one thing, and that's teleporting, which I sort of agree with. But nevertheless, there's something that we can do to this aspect of the end that actually makes it viable. Behold the warped aspects of the end. So I'm pretty sure 99% of people are familiar with the aspects of the end. But if you're not, it's basically quite an early game weapon that you basically just use to teleport your right click and you go forward. But as you can see, the warped reforge really does the business. It gives a massive damage and strength buff, which is pretty much exactly what it needs. As you can see, this one is also recombobulated, fuming potatoed, and it's got some pretty decent enchantments on it. Now, in a lot of my previous videos when I've been testing weapons, you might have seen me using one for all. And granted, one for all might actually do more damage, but at the end of the day, it's an aspect of the end and you still want to use it for its actual purpose, and that's teleporting, so ultimate wise is pretty much a must have. So that's why I've compromised this time, and it's not got one for all on it. Also, this isn't actually my aspects of the end. I've never owned a warped aspects of the end. It's actually one of the channel members who's basically let me borrow it for this video, so thanks to him. So what I've decided to do when testing this weapon, I'm not going to use any armor and I'm not going to use a pet, just because I feel like we're going to get pretty much more reliable results. I have had a lot of people commenting that, so that's what I'm going to do. I still have talismans and accessories, but it'll be slightly more reliable. So without further ado, let's give the aspects of the end a go. So let's see how much damage we do. Of course the first hit isn't a crit, that's amazing because I don't have armor. Okay, 49k. 49k, remember we don't have armor on, so say 49k damage, got 50k, that's really not too bad to be honest. Yeah, not too bad. We're going to compare it to a few other weapons. One thing that I did forget to mention, and is quite important to actually basically consider, is that this aspect of the end, I think the one that I've got would probably sell for around 15 to 20 million coins. So obviously it's not cheap, but the warped reforge really does do a lot. And that is why it costs so much. The warped reforged stone I think is quite expensive. Nevertheless, you can get an unrecombobulated one I think for close to 10 mil. So I'm not really sure how much the recombobulated does, probably not a massive amount. So we're going to compare this weapon to 3 other weapons in fact. First of all, the aspects of the dragons, then the flower of truth, and then the livid dagger. Now granted, these have all got pretty much slightly different enchantments on them, and they're at slightly different stages in terms of upgrades, but we're just going to get a rough idea. I mean, this video is not going to solve any sort of world crises, it's just a bit of entertainment at the end of the day. So if you get offended by the fact that these have different enchantments, then I don't really know what to say. But anyway, let's give this aspect of the dragons a go. 42k, actually, I mean, to be honest, 42k is actually not too bad considering it's quite a lot cheaper. And now let's try the flower of truth. 46k. Granted, flower of truth would actually be cheaper as well. I'm looking a little bit stupid with this aspects of the end suggestion now, but it's just interesting to see how much of a difference it actually makes with the warps and everything like that. But because I've not got armor on, I'm not getting crits all the time, which is a bit of an L, not going to lie. Anyway, now let's try it compared to the livid dagger. Yeah, 74k. I mean, to be honest with you, livid dagger's always going to be better. But yes, to be fair, like, I don't know, it's not really too bad, but is it worth it for the price? That is the real question, to be honest. Realistically, you're not going to be able to use this weapon in dungeons because you can't star it. Whereas the other 3 weapons can be starred and would be much more useful in dungeons other than the teleporting ability, which you can get for pretty much 150k because that's how much the sword actually costs. But regardless of that, I think it's quite interesting to know that the aspects of the end can actually do a decent amount of damage. Obviously the damage scales with pretty much your levels and the gear. So just because I do 49k with it doesn't mean you're going to do 49k with it. You might do 200k with it, or you might do 5k with it. Also take note that I am using a god pop, so I guess that sort of buffs the damage a little bit as well. So to be honest, it's not really worth the coins. The flower of truth does very similar damage to it, and it is a lot cheaper, and it is multi-purpose obviously because it's pretty good for clearing in dungeons as well. The livid dagger does considerably more damage, and at the end of the day, okay, we disconnected, great. And like I was saying, at the end of the day, really? Okay, third time's the charm, we're back on our present. As I was saying, basically, the livid dagger is really not too much more expensive when you actually come to think of it. The livid dagger that I've got probably costs like 25 mil. The aspects of the end, I think cost with like 17.5 mil, something like that, the one that I've got. And I mean, for that price difference of 7.5 million coins, the livid dagger is way better. Obviously, I'm not just saying Living Dagger is the only weapon that's better than it. There's lots and lots of other weapons that are better than it, like the Shadow Fury and Reaper Scythe, and obviously Valk and so on. And there's too many weapons to mention in that sort of area. Regardless of that, it is pretty cool to have a warped aspect to the end. I mean, I guess it's a little bit of a flex. You know, you don't just have a normal aspect at the end. You have this crazy souped up aspect to the end that actually does a decent amount of damage. But regardless of that, this is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all did enjoy. And if you did enjoy, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.